Yeah, so hi everyone. I'll start by introducing myself, giving some background info before we jump into things and while we wait for a few more folks to join us. My name is Caitlin Anderson. I am the National Recruitment Officer here at Carleton University. I've never gotten a reaction before because everybody's on mute when I do these presentations, so that's different. Really what that means, it's a lot of words, it just means that I'm here to help. Answer questions, guide you through the process, connect you with resources. And today I'm here so that you can listen to me talk a little bit before we launch into our presentation. So it should be a really great day, whether you're here with us for a tour and just this presentation or joining us for more of the day. I thank you so much for making this space to come to Carleton, to experience what this is all about, and hear from our experts about what you can expect in your programs. So I'm going to get us started so that you don't have to listen to me talk that much anymore. I'm going to hand it over to Johan, who's going to talk to you about the Azrieli School of Architecture and Urbanism and the programs that they offer. And I can say he's an expert. I've learned everything that I know from him. So I'm excited to hand you over. And if you need anything from me, let me know.
Perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Johan Bordow. I'm an associate professor and I'm the associate director of the Azrieli School of Architecture and Urbanism. So I have a presentation that's going to go through kind of what you can expect if you apply to our school, the portfolio requirements, and all of that type of information to help you on your way with an application. So to first give a little bit of background, if you need to contact anyone at the school, here are the two contacts. One is myself. So if you have any questions about applications, you can reach out to me. I ask that if you send an email that you also copy in our undergraduate administrator. Our undergraduate administrator knows absolutely everything there is to know about how to apply to the school. And so she is your very, very, very best contact. Sometimes people think that if they contact the director that they'll get a faster or better response. That typically isn't true. The director, while she's completely aware of admissions, defers admissions to Michelle and I. So because of that, if you need to email or contact us, we are your two best resources. Our admission requirements are English, physics, and advanced functions. And then what we do is that we take your next three highest 4U or 4M courses so that we do a total of 6 grades. Now, we calculate the overall average. The minimum cutoff to apply to the program is 74 to 76%, but we usually admit students with much, much higher ranges. We like kind of in the mid-80s and with strong portfolios. Now, the way that that works is that if you have a phenomenal portfolio, we'll be a little bit more generous on the grades. If you are an incredibly smart student, we can allow for a slightly weaker portfolio, but we're kind of in that range of good portfolios, smart students, because we are one of the most competitive programs, well, certainly at Carleton, but also as far as architecture programs are concerned in the province. Now, Carleton has these incredible entrance scholarships. I'm hoping, because I haven't done this presentation in 1.5 years in person, I'm hoping that this information is still correct. Okay, I got a thumbs up, perfect. So if you come into our program and you've got an 80 to 84.9 average, you're going to get $1,000 a year for the 4 years that you do your undergraduate study. Now, my understanding on this is that it's renewable at A-. So what that means is, let's say you move into residence, you have a little bit of a tough time adjusting, your average is slightly lower than you expected. What that means is you get your average back up and the money comes back. So you don't have to go home at Christmas and explain to your parents that not only did you have a bad term, but you also lost cash. You can say, I'll work extra hard in the winter term and I'll get it all back. So this is an incredibly generous thing that we have. If you are an exceptional student in the 95 to 100 range, that means $4,000 for 4 years. That is almost half half of your tuition paid for. These are key dates. So here we are on the 16th. In a week and a half, we'll have a BAS open house. In all honesty, you'll hear very much the same information. But what that allows you to do is to meet students. And if you're interested in any of the three majors that we have, and I'll explain that a little bit later, you can talk with them and say, what's it like being at Carleton? What's residence like? Where did you live after your first or second year? And you can have that type of a conversation. So that's the advantage to the open house. We also have design days, and then we have another open house in December. That one in December is geared towards people that are kind of halfway through their application. And they go like, I don't really understand what you meant by X. And then we can kind of walk you through that. We don't typically look at portfolios. And the reason why is that we have 730 applicants per year, and we just don't have the kind of bandwidth to make space for that number of people that have so many questions about portfolios. But these open houses are an amazing resource to be able to get kind of all of your questions answered. So if you're interested in our program, those are dates that are important for you. So why Carleton? Ottawa is a kind of a wonderful city. It's maybe slightly quieter than Toronto, but there are a number of advantages to being in our nation's capital. We have absolutely incredible cultural institutions. We have access to really remarkable kind of professionals. And then there's our campus, So you did get a little bit wet today. That's because, are the tunnels closed?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why. So right now, our campus, for those that don't want to go out in the bad weather, is not really optimized. But hopefully when you come back in September, the tunnels will be back open, which means that if I can use my cursor here, the architecture building is this red building right here. We are at the moment in the pavilions, which is right here. Residence is in gray, and all of these lines are the tunnels that connect every building on campus. So if it's cold or if it's rainy, you can just roll out of bed and you can rock into the tunnels and you can be into your classroom 5 minutes later. You never have to see the outdoors if you don't want to. These tunnels connect you also to athletics, to the library. And then the thing that's currently under construction, but hopefully they'll pick up the pace, is that it connects to the O train line, and of course the buses are running. So what that means is that we're an incredibly nice, compact campus. And if you want to live further afield in your second or third year, you've got a couple of friends, you want to rent a house, what you do is you can go anywhere around here, in here, and now that the O train line also goes east-west, you can live anywhere in that T, and you can get onto campus in about 15 minutes. And so that makes it very convenient also to kind of live here and work here and get an architectural education. Our facilities. Our building is a tough love. A lot of people, when they see it for the first time, they go, "Ooh, that's an architecture building. It's pretty ugly." But it is an absolute beloved building. And I'd be lying if I didn't say architecturally, it's actually very, very important. In the history of architecture, this is the best purpose-built school of architecture in what's called the Canadian Brutalist style. So while it is not a historic monument, it really ought to be. But the thing is that in that tough shell are some incredible spaces. So we have this pit. This is the heart of the school. When we're in person, this is where there's lectures, events. I've seen people kind of kicking a soccer ball around here late at night. This is the place where people have reviews and they come and they meet. And it is the very social heart of the school. We have the studios. These studios are light-filled. Everybody gets a desk. You can see it becomes a creative mess very, very quickly. But this is where you get projects and we say, design, and you work for a couple of weeks on a project to design whatever the brief is. Now, in your first year, the projects are quite small. And then as you go through the program, they become larger and larger and larger. And this is to prepare you for professional practice. And it's also to prepare you for your graduate school applications. We have public spaces, called these streets. So on the ground floor, there's one street that goes to the east-west. You go up a level, the other one goes north-south to where they cross. You can kind of look down and you can see the entire building. So you can see what's going on, which is always really fantastic. And in these streets, we have kind of public presentations. If there's a little pin-up or something like that, that's where these happen. So because of that, by walking the halls, you can see all of the things that are going on in the school. We have incredible workshop and assembly room facilities. So this is our wood shop. These machines are from the day that the building opened. They are built so well that they can last, if we take care of them, for another 50 years. But because of that, this is all at your disposal. We have welding rooms, we have metal bending, we have wood shops, and then we also have increased, so that here you see a couple of students working on their project. We have photo labs, CNC mill machines, 3D printers, and we have a full print shop. We also have laser cutters as well. We have an awesome robot, but that's for research, but we're just putting in funding, and if that comes through, then we'll have a full robot lab as well. And so that would then be for research, but we'll allow students, if the project warrants it, to come in. So we are trying to build kind of the most sophisticated technology labs that we have in Canada. We have a gallery. Here we have shows, sometimes they're student shows. And so what we do is we bring really, really great projects from around the world here so that students can see what other students are doing. But what we also do is that we bring in kind of incredible artists from all over. And in this way, you know, we improve the kind of cultural vitality of our program. We have the Forum and Open Forum lecture series. This is where we bring in amazing professionals. They talk to you about what it's like to be in the profession. They share their incredible work. And we are one of 2 schools that has a kind of school publication called Building 22. The other program is the University of Manitoba. So this is a yearbook of the best work that happens every single year. And so it is run by students, it's edited and curated by students. But if you get into this, it's a real achievement because it means that your project was deemed to be one of the very, very best of that year. So I kind of touched on this earlier, but this is really important. We have 3 majors in our program, and they are very distinctive. We all start together in the first year, but then after that, we kind of braid to the 4th year. The first one is conservation and sustainability. And so it really is about the preservation and adaptive transformation of existing building stock. So what does that mean? The majority of buildings in Canada have already been built. And so the question is, what do we do with all of these buildings? How do we transform them for the next 50 years? Should we take a wrecking ball and knock them all down to the ground and throw that all in the landfill? Given our current climate crisis, the answer to that is a clear and resonant no. So then the question is, what do we do with this stuff? Stuff that might actually have had past industrial uses, that need, that are contaminated, and all of these things. Conservation and sustainability looks at how to retrofit, to recycle, and to rejuvenate those projects. So a lot of people think that conservation is always like just really beautiful old buildings. That's part of it. So what you see going on Parliament Hill right now is a preservation conservation project. But really the stuff that happens more in Canada is how to transform, let's say, like warehouses into new use, or how to take, let's say, an office building that no longer has tenants and maybe convert that to another form, maybe housing, maybe something institutional. And so that really is what conservation and sustainability is about. They look at existing buildings. So this is a little project that someone did for 24 Sussex Drive, which 18 months ago was a really contentious issue. People were wondering if they should just knock it down and build a new one. Is it worth the money to spend, $50 million that's needed to retrofit it. Other people say, no, it's the Prime Minister's house, it's really important. Other people say that architecturally, it's actually a completely uninteresting and indistinct house. So let's actually build something special. And these are the type of conversations that would happen in conservation and sustainability. Then we have design. Design is what you would consider to be your more kind of bread and butter architecture program. So this is looking at how we can collectively enhance the quality of life through improvements of the built environment. Architecture really looks at kind of breaking down the idea of a building into kind of a web of parts. So the first is site, where is the building located? Then there's a program, what will it be used for? Fancy word is tectonics, how it will be built. Systems, so this is all the techno stuff of how the environment, the internal environment is going to be moderated. And then the context. The context is really, really important because it's the social, cultural, and environmental forces that shape a building. So COVID has caused a really, really interesting thing about context. The thing about context is that families right now in this room are sitting 2 meters apart. This has never happened before. That is a contextual problem. How do you design a lecture theater that can maybe accommodate these types of different situations? Currently, the smartest thing that we've come up with is a series of green check marks. Industrial designers, architects, engineers can come up, let's say, with smarter solutions if the time and the money and the inclination is there to warrant it. At the moment, we're hopeful that in a couple months' time, we can rip off all of these green check marks and we never have to worry about this problem again. But if it is something that continues, then it's going to become a really urgent architectural problem. How do we allow for this constant shift of occupancy because of, let's say, public health regulations? So those are kind of some of the smaller contextual things that happen that allow us to think, critically about building. And that makes buildings and designing buildings so interesting because it's constantly changing. And so why have we been designing houses for the last, well, architects have only been designing houses for the last 500 years, but why have we been designing and building houses for thousands of years? And why are we still constantly tinkering with it? Like if you were an engineer, you'd say, how could you not have figured this out already? Like, you've had all of this time. But it's because we have to deal with culture, we have to deal with society, we have to deal with social factors that allow one person to say, I'm not sure, I actually kind of want this, I don't want this, I want this. And it allows us to do an ongoing kind of transformation of the built environment. This is a little project, again, just to throw a visual in there. The reason why I choose this one, it's kind of a lovely drawing, it's a bit soft. If the lights were off, you can see it far more clearly. But also, I think that it's an important drawing to show because you see what's called the section at the bottom, which is kind of a cut through the building so that you can see all of the technical requirements. So you can see the foundation, you can see the floors, you can see kind of all of the structure that's needed to hold this thing up, which kind of is an indication that, yes, we are a program that very, very much loves the arts and the creation of kind of beautiful stuff. But if it can't be built, if it doesn't work, then we haven't done our job properly. So this project kind of balances very, very nicely the requirements of the technical requirements of building with, let's say, a very creative expression of what a building in the landscape might be. Then we have urbanism. To be completely forthright, urbanism is probably the most misunderstood of our 3 majors. And so because of that, it's really, really important that I stick here for a moment. Urbanism is the design of cities. To be really, really clear about it, our success in climate change is going to really deal with how well we design and transform cities. If we get it wrong, then we'll continue kind of to really struggle with meeting the targets that we need to meet. If we get it right, we start to consider kind of sustainable development. If we understand kind of stewardship of the built environment, then we actually have a pretty okay-ish chance of slowly mitigating this crisis over time. And so cities need to be better designed. It's not just buildings, but we have to think of this in a really systemic way. Now, if you really like thinking about things like systems, infrastructure, how that works, then urbanism is kind of your thing. You know, if you're not too interested in like the little details of a building, but you want to understand neighborhoods or entire regions, then urbanism is kind of more your thing. And so this is a place where you get to think about the really, really big picture of stuff. So, you know, that is another way that we need to design. Canada has historically not had a very strong urban design field. You know, it's not something that's really in the American or in the Canadian consciousness or in the American consciousness for that matter. You know, we kind of build because we've got all the land that we could possibly ever use. We can build because we have all of the resources that we could possibly want. And yet we're starting to come up against that inflection point where we realize, man, it'd be really great if we'd done this better. And so that's where we're up against now. So urbanism is an incredibly urgent field, but I would say it's an emerging one. So here you have someone that's kind of looking at these blocks and how, you know, they might communicate with one another to create a more responsive urban environment. Career opportunities. We have just a really, really great design degree. So for students that are, you know, kind of interested, but at the end, maybe in second, third year, they're like, oh man, you know, is there other things that I can kind of do with this degree? You know, here's a list of stuff that is possible. So for conservation and sustainability, you can become an adaptive reuse architect, a sustainable design consultant, a historic building inspector. You can work at foundations like the World Monuments Fund or ICOMOS. You can work at the Canadian Association of Heritage Professionals. You can become a social activist or an accessibility architect. If you follow design, you could, if you really like the theoretical parts of it, become a historian, a journalist, or a writer critic. If you like more of the building aspect of it, you can become a contractor, an inspector. And then there's all of the creative fields that are available to you. So you can become, you know, any form of designer. So we've had people go into interior design, lighting, set. We've had people go into fashion, furniture, graphic, exhibition design. We've had people become facilities managers, illustrators, kind of landscape architects. So I want everyone here to kind of recognize that if you go into the design field, it's not that the only thing that you can do at the end of that is become an architect. You know, architect is one of the things which 2/3 of our students continue on. But that other third, they say, like, this was really great, but we're going to go do something else, and off they go. Kind of the best example was that there was a student that in their second year actually came up and said, look, I want to finish my degree, but I'm actually way more interested in animation. Like, what can I do? And I said, okay, well, let's change some of your electives around. So we'll make these animation electives, which are also at Carleton, we'll make them actually electives for you. And you'll take these studios with these people so you can do those types of projects. And in the last term that you have, you'll be with me, and I'll let you do whatever project you want so that you can get into animation school when you leave. He became the content curator for Paw Patrol within 2 weeks of leaving our program. He became the only non-Sheridan College graduate to work for that company. Went all the way up, then all of a sudden decided Nickelodeon poached him. He started his own program, and now he's doing content for Nickelodeon. That's possible because the skills that you learn here are transferable to other fields. So if you're not entirely sure about architecture halfway through your education, it's okay. We can pick you up and we can parachute you into other things as well. We have co-op. We're trying to grow co-op. We want more students to take it, but it's currently that you do 4 work terms, and so that's a total, actually that's incorrect, sorry. It's 3 work terms for a total 12 months of experience, but it's over a 16-month period of time. So why 16 months? Well, because our school year ends, let's say May 1st, and you've got a summer, takes you to September, and then you have a full academic year, which takes you back to September. So if you add that all up, that's 16 months. So let's say the economy it's a little shaky, or you'd like a little break after your third year. You can take a month off, get a job, let's say midway through the summer. You have lots of time to complete your co-op experience, and then you come back. Now, the one thing that it obviously does is if you leave for a year to work, it takes your 4-year undergraduate degree to 5 years. But in that time, you've learned incredible experience, you've made a little bit of money, and when you finish your 4th year, often those students go back to the firm where they just worked at 8 months before, they get picked up again, and maybe work for a year or 2 in practice before continuing with grad school. So it's a really, really nice way of getting that to work. Now for co-op, we have a co-op office. That co-op office is in contact with firms in Canada, and so we do have a relationship that way. But a lot of students, you can go anywhere you want. So if they want to go back and experience something abroad, we support them in that, but 9 out of 10 times they kind of have to do a little bit of homework themselves to find and land that job. Obviously, we don't walk up to you and say, you start here on Monday. What it is that you have to go for an interview, and like all kind of job applications, you have to impress. But because we're a competitive program, because we take smart students, because we need them to have a CGPA that's above a B+, our students that are in the program almost always land a job. And so I should also say that, so different from some other co-op programs, it is paid work. This isn't volunteerism. So we're not going to send you to New York and that you write and say, yeah, I got a job. It's paid at $150 a month. I'm only going additionally into debt for another $2,000 as I get a small little studio somewhere, in Yonkers. That's not for us what's paid employment. No, it's a living wage. We have directed studies abroad. This is a wonderful opportunity in 3rd year. We have 2 opportunities in 3rd year. One is that you just go on a fantastic study trip. This is for kind of 10 days. We throw you on a plane somewhere, you land, and you are meeting professionals, you're going to sites, you're checking out buildings. This is a study trip. But we have sent people all over Europe, China, Japan, India. We're looking at how we can start to kind of rein it in a little bit so that everyone can have that opportunity to maybe put a cap on costs and that those costs upfront and beforehand. But this is a kind of an amazing educational experience for those that have it. Now, for those students that, let's say, don't want to travel abroad for whatever reason, we don't ever ask, that's kind of personal to you. There is always a group that stays at home. But the trip is only 10 days long, kind of bookended between 2 weekends and the reading week of the winter term for 3rd year. So, it's kind of easy to just hang out and then your classmates come back and you continue with the studio. We also have international exchange. This is kind of far more elaborate, but it's where you go for an entire term to study at another university. So we have relationships with Monash, with Paris Malike, with the Technion in Haifa. We have also KwaZulu-Natal, and then Madrid, Liverpool, and Montfort University in the UK. And so what happens here is that you apply for that early, you get accepted, and then for an entire term, you go and you study at that place. The reason why we pick these places is because their curriculum is very similar to ours in quality and in content. So what that means is that you might have to take one course that you can't find credit for, but when you come back, you just go straight into 4th year. And you can do that course in the summer or whatever. We make that available to you. But so it's a really, really wonderful way if you want a kind of broadened experience that you can study at another university for 4 months. We have student groups. The oldest and most established one is the Architectural Student Association, the Israeli Architecture Student Association, ASA. They're the ones that kind of plan events. they're also the one that liaise with our faculty board. So if there's an issue, they're the ones that kind of contact us, we contact them. Their student representatives sit on our faculty board. So they're at every open meeting to kind of understand how the school works. So that's kind of the general liaison. We also have a student well-being committee, a diversity working group, and the architecture lobby. The architecture lobby deals with environmental concerns. So now about the kind of bread and butter of what this application thing is all about. Last year, we received 730 applications. We made 200 offers to accept 100 students. We accept 60 in design, 20 in urbanism, and 20 in conservation and sustainability. This stuff is all due March 1st, and it's due right before midnight. I think we put 11:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's 2 written components, and I'll explain them in a second. One is a brief CV, and the other one is a short description. And then there's visual components, which is what really everyone's always interested about. But I would say that it's the written components that you should be equally kind of invested in. You will write something every day of your life, whether it's a text or a memo or an email or a paper or a response or something, And so the written component is really, really important. For a professional going into an office, you have to be able to communicate clearly, and you have to be able to understand and parse out when a quick text is okay and when you need to be kind of far more formal. Now, we're in the application process quite open to the breadth of kind of creative thinking that writing can entail. But I would say, take your time, make sure there's no spelling mistakes, have proper grammar, just do all the due diligence that you would expect for someone that's applying to a university program. So the first part of the exercise, the written exercise, is an applicant description. It's a brief CV. The CV is just a list of 5, no more, no less, of your academic, athletic, and artistic accomplishments. So if you played on your high school volleyball team and went to the city finals twice, and that's something you're really proud of. You worked hard on it. It's something that you committed to. Tell us about it. We want to know that. If you learned how to draw from your grandparents and you went every summer to their house and you went into the woods and you kind of just drew and painted and sketched and all of that type of stuff, and that's why you love drawing, tell us about that. What we're looking for is just the thing, 1, what makes you a unique candidate, what makes you different from other people, and 2, kind of what are the things that you're committed to. If you're like, oh yeah, 1 year I went into basketball camp, the next year I went to badminton, that's not interesting or important to us. It just means that you kind of bounced around and you never really picked one of them. But if there's something that you're like, I did dance or ballet since I was 4 years old and I did it for 16 years. It's like, that's cool. That was your time. We don't expect students to be working on architecture right now. You're not studying architecture, so you're doing other stuff. So let us know. The short description is why you're a strong candidate. Why conservation and sustainability? Why design? Why urbanism? And this is a really important question because oftentimes we get like, I'm really interested in design. We're like, okay. They're like, the city is so important. If we mess up designing cities, then we're like, well, but you said design, but you're writing about urbanism. So there's like a disconnect there. So we're like, is this candidate actually applying to the correct major? So then I have in the past kind of written, recruitment or admissions doesn't like that. So like, don't reach out to anyone. And they're like, you're a really strong candidate. Do you mean design or do you mean urbanism? And they're like, oh, I mean design. I'm like, oh no, I was hoping you'd say urbanism because all you've done is write about urbanism. But this is where, we try to figure out and get people into the right spot. Now, let's say you come into the program and you're like, oh man, this is not what I wanted at all. You know, I want that one over there. I want conservation and sustainability. There is a transfer of major process, but it's competitive. It's tough. And we might only allow 1 or 2 people to transfer a year. So because of that, it really is best if you just make it into the one you want right off the bat. You know, don't think, okay, I'm going to try to game the system and I'm going to go for the one that I think is easy to get into, and then I'm going to see if I can transfer later. It's like, no, we don't try to play that game. All right? So if you're interested in one, that's the one you go for. Then we have the essay questions. These questions are a bit weird. They're a bit different. They're intended to make you think. What it really is that we're hoping is that you can't just take an essay that you wrote for English class like 3 months before, change the title and submit it to us, right? We want you to have a position on this stuff. Tell us what you think, tell us what you've experienced, tell us what you know. And so there might be a little bit of work that needs to be done, so who's Khalil Gibran, who's Shannon Nattern, what does that even mean? What is this book, Code and Clay, Data and Dirt? Can I find actually a little synopsis of that book online? Go into Amazon, act like you're going to buy it, read the thing, and kind of move on. All of these things is kind of perfectly fine. But because of that, again, like I said, the written word is important. So take your time with this stuff. Now we get to the visual stuff, the drawings. You'll be sending up to 8 images to us. 4 of them are mandatory, 4 of them are optional. So because of that, you can get into our program having just sent the 4 mandatory images. We have 6 themes for you to choose from. So if you read through it and you're like, I'm not really interested in the reconsidering the existing, no, that's not for me, fine. You can have another one that you kind of slough off, but you have to do 4 of them. And so this is, again, intended to make you think. It's to kind of prompt you different things. Now people say, what are the things that you like? Well, we like to know what you think as a response to these prompts. Now, the best thing that you can do is start early. Let's say you look at the one and you say, the world around you. Oh, yeah, world around me right now. It's COVID, it's COVID, it's COVID, it's COVID. Write it down, put it in your drawer for a week, and then come back to it. The reason why I say that is that the first response that you have is probably the response that 300 other people are going to have. And if we have to pick between what is the best of 300 COVID pictures that respond to the world around you, then that's going to be tough. If, on the other hand, you take a look and you go, actually, I'm going to go slightly closer to home. Is there something happening in my neighborhood? Is there something that's happening in my family? Is there something that's happening with my friends? Is there something that's happening in my school? And I'm going to maybe respond to that. Obviously, you don't have to disclose anything, but so, family, ask parents maybe first. But the thing is that what we're trying to get to is kind of a really nuanced, thoughtful, intelligent kind of content in an image. And so because of that, this will take a little bit of planning. And so, yes, world around you, something made, come up with that. And you might a week later say, no, that's exactly the thing that I want to do. But just remember, you are in a pool of 730 other people that are exactly at the same stage of their life. And so because of that, you really, again, need to parse out how you can become a unique candidate. For optionals, images can be anything. So this is where we put photography, digital work. Some people have done sewing, embroidery, fashion, building. If you're dance, theater, submit a photo of you in a performance. And so that's that stuff. One of the coolest things I've ever seen was someone that made fly fishing reels, like hooks. And in one photo, they had all of the stuff that they used. So there's like pheasant feathers and other type of things, kind of the hooks and the yarn, this. It was all beautifully laid out. And then the next photo is all finished. They're fantastic. They're beautiful. And it's like, okay, this person knows how to make something. You know, that's their thing. You like going fishing on the weekend. We're interested in that. Someone was making instruments. That's cool. Birchwood canoes with their parents. That's cool. And then other people, it's kind of just, you know, they went on a trip and they are just really, really good at taking beautiful photos. I will say a caution about photos though. There's a difference between a good photo and a photo of a good experience. So you go down to Cabo, see this amazing sunset. You love the trip. Food was fantastic, happy, got you into the warm weather in the middle of March. You take that photo of the sunset. That is a photo of a good experience. It's not necessarily a good photo. We get hundreds of Cabo sunset pictures because people have just a really good vibe about that time. They're like, oh, that was so awesome. I love that picture. That picture reminds me of everything that was good about that trip. We don't see it that way. We're looking at composition, we're looking at color, we're looking at how you framed it, you know? And so because of that, people put in a lot of photos, and some of them are good, many of them aren't. So if you have actually another drawing, it might just be better to put that in instead. So just really, really, really look critically at your work, you know? So and just be really mindful about what we're looking for. Okay, yeah, no, so this is second to last slide. The last thing that I want to mention about the portfolio is that you submit in an online platform called SlideRoom. SlideRoom is, for any of you from your generation, super simple to use. It's kind of like Instagram, you post images, type little annotations, all of that type of stuff, right? Until you hit submit, it's with you. So if you want to trade things out, all of that stuff is fine. Right? The thing with SlideRoom is that as an American program, you need to sign up for it, and that costs a couple of bucks. Last time I checked, it was $10 US. So you'll need a credit card. And a problem that we run into quite often is that students wait until the very, very end. The parents are out. They can't get a credit card. They're scrambling to sign up for SlideRoom to be able to submit their application, and they can't. And then we get a panic email at around 11:25 asking if they can get an extension. Now, 9 out of 10 times we give people an extension. It's okay. But it would just be much better if you know you're going to apply, just sign up for it today. And then you never have to worry about that again, right? And then what you can do is you can kind of figure out how the whole thing works. It is easy, but you can kind of get used to it. Put up a couple of images already, maybe your 4 optional images. Maybe you're in an amazing arts program right now, and you're just like, I've got that stuff already done. Okay, put that up. And then take time also to write annotations and to kind of give descriptions of stuff. You can give descriptions of things about 100 words. And then the last one is for all of those that are maybe a little bit younger, grade 10 or 11, we have Imagine Architecture. And this is a summer camp that's for grade 10 to grade 12 students that are interested in architecture. Maybe you're on the fence. There was a family before, didn't quite know if it was going to be architecture or architectural engineering. What they could do is that they could sign up for one of these courses. You can come into we're hoping that next year is in person. Come into the school, do a project with a couple of people that are also in high school from different parts of the country, and you figure out if this is the thing you want to do. Like if you're not quite sure, then this is a perfect way to find out if 1, architecture is the thing you want to study, and 2, if Carleton's the place where you want to study. And so, you know, that's the plug for the Imagine Architecture program, which has been running for 5 years, and it's, you know, kind of gone from strength to strength. So that's the slides for now. I'm going to have to also say to the 2 people that are online, Ross and Nina, are you going to check if they've got questions, or do
Yeah, I'll
Okay, so, but yeah, now we have, a couple minutes for questions.
So if you have any questions, Nina or Ross, if you do, you can also throw your hand up in Zoom, but anyone in the room.
So I'm wondering about your co-op program. So what kind of job placement usually are coming from? And, for our students that's, higher than 77 CGPA, do they all normally get placement?
Yeah.
Or they have to go out and, place them by themselves?
So we support our students to get placements as much as possible. Most students are from the GTA, they go back to the GTA. We have good contacts there, so all of that stuff is okay. Let's say for students that want to move back to Edmonton or Calgary, Winnipeg, Vancouver, or let's say if they're from abroad and they want to go back to Doha, that gets a little bit trickier. But we support them in helping them kind of through the interview process, the portfolio process, and if we can, and if we have contacts in those places, we'll reach out to them to find jobs. But for those that are a little bit further afield, the job usually becomes a little bit more on their shoulders than
I
ours.
guess I didn't phrase my question properly. So what kind of job is it coming from?
Oh.
Is it the government or is just from,
So let's say conservation and sustainability goes a lot into government, into departments like public works, heritage, that type of stuff, although they can get into private practice. Like there's a big firm in Toronto called ERA where we have placements. Design students, it's usually design firms, just architecture firms, small, medium, big. And then urbanism students are also kind of a half and half between government and between private practice.
So is it often easy to get placement, or do we have to find that?
It's economically dependent. So, which is, I'm not trying to be kind of coy with my answer, but in times of boom, we cannot get enough co-op students, and we're just trying to get as many people into firms as possible. In times where things are a bit more sluggish, at that point, we're doing a lot of phoning, and we're asking for a lot of goodwill from the profession. We're hoping that we are entering into a time where things pick up again. Currently, given supply chain issues, the construction industry has had a tough time, but that hasn't actually been for a lack of wanting to build. It's been more because of other issues. So we've noticed that in this year, we haven't had issues placing our students. The problems are actually more further up the chain. And so we're expecting that that's to continue, that we will have a healthy, about 50%, 30 to 50% of our students do co-op, and we have all expectation that we will be able to place all of those students in the foreseeable future.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And students have a lot of support for co-op, not only through the department, but we have an office that oversees our co-op program. So that helps students in developing their resumes, practicing for interviews, so that when they walk into these opportunities, they feel prepared to do so. So there's lots of support on campus for those opportunities in our co-op office, along with the faculty in architecture really help support students so that they feel prepared for those opportunities.
Yep.
So normally it's just like a 4 months kind of thing, right?
So they're done in terms, right? So as Johan mentioned, there's 3 co-op work terms that take a total of 12 months. So they're almost like 4 month each co-op terms, and students complete all of those to complete the co-op program.
The nice thing is especially, let's say, if there's a slightly larger firm and students get embedded into a larger team that has a bigger project, and usually the team will just say, look, this is a project that's going to last 2 years. We are happy for you to work on this for a year. If it's an even bigger project, we've had students go for a year, come back for the 8 months, and then the architecture firm said, like, can you come back to help finish this? And so that's a nice thing about architecture projects, is that they sometimes take a really long time, and it allows you to kind of move in and out of that with more ease. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
How are the marks working? So if I don't have physics and English into the last, so we look at my grade 11 physics and English.
We will hold all of that kind of in loop. We're going to wait for you to have those grades. But if you have a good average and you have shown that you're a strong student in the past, we have no concerns with you continuing to be a strong student for the last quadmester. The quadmester has thrown a new wrench into the admissions kind of plan, but we're not going to penalize students that by virtue of their schedule have exactly your situation, and that is very common. There's probably a couple people in this room that might be in the same boat. Yes.
So you want to make sure that you're registered in them so that
Yes.
they show up on the record when it gets sent through to us. So that we can see, like, we'll get your grades for what you've done in grade 11 and we can see your history in those courses. But then we can also see that you're actually registered in the right prerequisites. But yeah, the last 2 years, you're not the only one. It happens all the time. The schools always hold those ones until the last term.
Yeah. Yes.
So just given the climate we're in, what is the policy in terms of in-class versus online with COVID, like within the present program?
So this year, what we did in the summer, out a number of student surveys that kind of asked what students wanted to do, and this is also true for faculty, because obviously these health requirements are both among faculty, staff, and students. 72% of our students responded that they wanted to be in person, and so what we did is that we linked in faculty that were able to teach in person to students that wanted to be in person. And that's the way that, let's say, studio is being run at the moment. And then for any class that's larger than 60, that's online. We had to convert our entire building to a studio, essentially. So we've used every square inch of our building to become a studio. So because of that, studios are either in person or online, depending on what a student chose. And courses right now are online as a default because we have no classrooms left. Classrooms have become studios. But for the 72% of people that want to use the building, they have access to the building. For the other 28%, for those that live in Ottawa and want to use the facilities, they can come in and use the facilities. They don't have a desk space in studio. And then what I've done, which I'm kind of regretting now, but I took all of the students that were abroad, that were very far abroad, and I teach them in the mornings so that they're not studying from 1:30 at night to 5:30 in the morning. I teach them at 8:30 in the morning, so it's 8:30 their time. And then I teach the rest of my students that are here at the allotted 1:30 to 5:30 time. It does mean that I'm kind of teaching all day, but it's just for mental health reasons, this seems to be like the most responsible thing that we can do at the moment. And so that's the way that's working out. Yes. Yeah.
Touching on international students, so you're accepting 100 for the program. How many do you accept international places from that 100?
It changes year on year, but I would say that in and around 10% of our students, but that's tricky because sometimes they have, let's say, permanent residence, but they are abroad. And so because of that, they fall into kind of both categories, right? They are living abroad at the moment, but if they wanted to come to Canada at any time, they could get on a plane, show their permanent resident card, and get into the country. And so I don't have those immediate statistics, but about 10% of our students are abroad. Yeah. Yes, behind. Yeah.
For the portfolios, do the interns have to be only hand-drawn or are digital projects allowed to be submitted?
So for the optional images, digital projects are totally allowed. That's kind of why we have the optional images. We are starting to become slightly more flexible with digital images in the kind of mandatory drawings. The thing is that what we've noticed is that a lot of the digital images, again, they come from a particular set of thinking about visual drawing. So it's like a lot of manga, it's a lot of kind of cartoon, that type of characterization. And so if that's your thing, just show a variety of stuff. Show that you are, for the lack of a better term, not just a one-trick pony. That you're really, really, really great at kind of cartoon characters and those things, but not necessarily versatile, right? And so for digital art, you can most certainly put that into the required images, but show a range.
So if you designed a building digitally, so we submitted for your mandatory images?
No, if you did a building, let's say you had a course in high school or whatever, you can do that in the optional images, but we would suggest, doing only one of those kind of images. The reason why is, we like to think that we know architecture really well. And so because we're architects, we're trained architects, when we see a building that's come from a high school drafting or a high school modeling course, we critique it on its architectural merits. And yet that's not fair. But if we were to only look at it as a skill set, then it is a skill that many, many people have. So we always have to look at things, not just for technique, but also for content. And content when you're designing buildings is it a good building or not? And so because of that, one image is perfectly fine because that shows us that you have those skills and all of that type of stuff. But when students start to put their entire optional image thing, like all 4 images as building design, all we can really do is start to kind of judge whether they're good buildings or not. And it's unfair, but usually that doesn't go super in favor of the candidate.
So let's go over here and then we can.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. So I know this is a time commitment heavy program, as compared to, obviously arts or science. She has an offer from athletics for one of the teams. Is this something that she would be able to do? Like, what is the time commitment for this program?
We have reevaluated that in the last couple of years. It is true that there are, I'll be very, very frank about it, but there have been kind of horror stories in the past of architecture really beating down their students, that were like law, like medicine, we like being kind of a tough program. That's changed a lot. I think that the entire conversation around student well-being and mental health has made those types of programs untenable, And so, the idea of the all-nighter, that is really a thing of the past. The idea of, and so let's say in my own studio, I put them in 1-week blocks to say, this is the work that you need to accomplish this week. And if you do it in that week, the weekend is yours.
And so then flexibility for athletics.
And so we have now had students that are in hockey and curling and soccer and all of that stuff has been fine.
Yeah,
Yep.
when I was here, the architects slept under the drafting.
They did, yeah. And so we've, we still want a quality program, but there's no point anymore in running the ship like that.
Okay, and my second question is around support for the portfolio. Is there anybody to just say like, not to do the critique and say, yes, we should submit this or you shouldn't, or give me an idea, but is this the kind of thing you're looking for? Is there that support? Is there somebody even in 4th year in the program that you could speak to or interact with or anything like that?
So I think that the best case in that is the open house.
Okay.
And then in that scenario, you would email that to me.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what I usually do, I don't actually know if it's written in the open house literature this year. It was last year. It should be there this year. If it's not, we can change that. But if people want to send me images, then I'll collect them And then in that instance, then I'll anonymously, obviously, I won't be like, this is Josh's picture. Hey, Josh, wave to everyone. No, but then I will start to talk very generally about images, and I'll say, this is what's strong about it. This is what can be improved about it. And what I also do at the open house is that I give a lecture. I do this one much faster. I drag this one out today. But I do a talk about what makes a strong image. So I go through previous submissions, kind of pieces of art to say, look at this for line weight, look at this for composition, all this. I know that there was a question. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
You said that you shouldn't add like pictures of buildings. Does that mean just the designs we make, or like what about paintings of other buildings?
Oh, totally. No, it is more that, let's say, when students have Revit skills, let's say they took Revit as a course, they should include that image, but this is also where, let's say in the annotation, you can say, I'm including this to showcase that I know Revit as a program. Paintings of buildings, drawings of spaces, all of that stuff is fantastic. Now, this is where in the open house, I'll talk a little bit more about that as to like what we want, drawings that are spatial. Like what does that mean? Okay, well, we want something that's got a foreground, middle ground, background. Does that have to be a room or a building? It doesn't have to be, but it can be. But this is where drawings and paintings of the built environment are fantastic. And so absolutely you should include those. But when students put 4 different floor plans in for like a house that they designed, then there's nothing more than we can do to say like, does that as a floor plan make sense? Like, why is the kitchen's over here, the garage is all the way over there? What do you do when you've got all of those bags of groceries moving through that bedroom, that bathroom, that living room to get there? It's not so the skills are there. You have the knowledge of how to use the program, but the design expertise, that's why you're coming to us in the first place. But like, if you give that to us, we have to judge it on its merits, and we go, not as good as it could be. So yeah, that's why we just kind of advise, do one, but don't fill your whole portfolio with them. Yes.
Sorry, you keep mentioning this open house. I just want to know, when is the open house?
Let's go back. It's the second, it's the third slide, I think. So we have one in October, very soon. And then we have one in December. And I would say really for the portfolio images and that type of stuff, the December one is excellent. That's a great point for you to come back to us. And then we can have a chat. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, again.
Do you consider high school schisms and co-ops?
Pardon me?
Do you consider schisms and co-ops in the application process?
So when we're looking at your grades, they're not the co-op grades. We're looking at your top 6 4U4M courses, which will include those 3 prerequisites that you need, and then 3 other courses, but those aren't co-op courses. The schisms often come with another course code, or you're taking other courses within them. But really, like, architecture looks at 2 pieces, right? They're looking at the academics of your prerequisites and those grades, but they're also looking at your portfolio. So those 2 pieces come together as part of your application, which also means there's 2 parts to your application, right? You need to apply to Carleton and apply to architecture, and then you need to submit your portfolio. So the application deadline for Ontario high school students, if that's you, through the Ontario University Application Center, is January 13th, 2022. So that is when you need to apply to the university by. The deadline for your portfolio is March 1st at 11:45 p.m. EST. So there's 2 parts to that, just like there's 2 parts to the evaluation of your application to architecture.
And so actually there's a couple of really great points with that. When you apply to the university, you'll get a Carleton student number, and we will need that student number to do the portfolio application. Now, the reason why that matters is that architecture is slightly naughty in this way. Some students have not applied to the university by January 13th, and they still apply to us on March 1st. But what it means is that they contact the university the day before. And so last year we had to process over 300 student numbers in 24 hours. Our IT department was not impressed. And so this is another reason why we really, really, really want you to meet that January 13th deadline, because if you don't, it causes a world of hurt for kind of everybody else. But to talk about school experiences, if you had an amazing experience at school, that is also something that you could mention or write about in the CV. So let's say you did something that we're not going to maybe academically accept, but you really want us to know about it. Then that can be one of the 5 things that you include in that short CV where you talk about your 5 academic, athletic, and artistic achievements. So for some people, it might be 5 academic achievements. The best math student, I did this, I did this, I did this, and I've won all of these awards. And we're like, whoa, that is spectacular. Some will have more of a balance.
So I want to be respectful of your time. We are about 10 minutes after 11, but this has been fantastic and these questions are great. If you do have some, I'll be here to help navigate some of those. Thank you to those of you who joined us virtually. Contact.
Yeah.
Take a guess.
Yeah.
So this is again the contact info for architecture. If you're looking for general admissions information, not only is it on the back of your view book if you picked one of those up, but it's just admissions.carleton.ca. So this is a super exciting time. There's lots of research to happen, ideas to flow. I think you've been given a lot to think about today, be that your portfolio or the program itself, the information that's been shared, the program within architecture that you'd like to go into. Again, take the time to think about what that could be. And reach out if you have questions. Attend one of the open house design days. Ask us your questions and make sure that you reach out. That's what we're here for, not only today, but moving forward. If there's anything that we can do, let us know.